All right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something that I think we can all relate to.
Okay.
You know that feeling when you want to start something new,
Uh-huh.
but you just feel held back by self-doubt?
Yeah.
You're kind of standing there like the edge of a diving board
Yeah.
and looking down at the water, and you just kind of freeze.
Yeah.
And that's what we're diving into today. We're going to be taking a look at a text called The Courage to Take the First Step, starting when you're not ready.
Okay. Interesting.
And yeah, I think it's going to give us some interesting insights as to, what makes that first step so daunting
Right.
and even more importantly, how to overcome that hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
So to start off, why do you think that that initial leap is so scary?
Well, it's interesting because the text actually brings up this idea that this waiting for readiness can actually be a form of self-sabotage.
Oh, okay.
It's like we're waiting for this perfect moment of confidence and certainty,
Yeah.
but that rarely exists.
Yeah. Like you're setting yourself up for failure almost before you even begin.
Right. Exactly.
Because you have this expectation that's like so impossibly high that when you don't meet it, you're like, well, I'm not good enough to do this.
Exactly. And the text actually gives a really interesting example with this entrepreneur.
Yep.
And she had this idea for a new product, and she spent months, even years planning it, refining it,
Wow.
trying to make it absolutely perfect before launching it.
So she was waiting for that feeling of being 100% ready.
Right, exactly. And while she was waiting, a competitor came out with a very similar product
Oh, no.
and captured that market share that she was aiming for.
That's rough.
She was so focused on getting everything just right that she missed her window.
Yeah, it's interesting
Mm.
because that really highlights how waiting for this readiness,
Yeah,
can really cost you
absolutely.
because you can miss out on so much in the meantime. What would you say is the text's alternative to waiting for this readiness?
Well, instead of waiting, the text actually suggests that we focus on what they call imperfect action,
Okay.
which is basically this idea that you just start, even if it's messy,
Uh-huh.
even if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And because by taking action, even if it's imperfect, you create momentum.
Okay.
You learn, you adapt, you course correct.
It's interesting because that really reminds me of that saying, done is better than perfect.
Right.
But the text takes it a step further,
Well,
right?
does.
It actually says that taking that first step creates the readiness
Yes.
that you were waiting for.
That's a really good point.
So it's almost like in the doing, you build the confidence
Yeah.
and see the path forward more clearly.
Absolutely. And it's not just about like these big life-changing decisions.
Right.
This applies to everything. Writing an email that you've been putting off, starting a workout routine, learning a new skill,
It's like anything.
anything. What's a small step you can take today, even if you don't feel 100% ready? That's the question.
Yeah, what's slightly out of reach, but still doable.
Exactly.
It's funny because that question really changes things, doesn't it?
It does.
Instead of waiting to feel ready, you act and let the readiness kind of catch up.
Yeah.
And I think the text even gives a framework for how to do that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about breaking down these big, daunting tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Absolutely. It really emphasizes setting realistic goals and focusing on making progress gradually,
Right.
like one step at a time.
One step at a time.
It's like climbing a mountain. You don't immediately focus on reaching the summit.
Yeah.
You focus on taking that next step,
Right.
then the next, and eventually you find yourself at the top.
Like you're not looking up at the peak of the mountain the whole time.
Exactly.
You're just like, what's the next foothold?
Right.
And that really does a good job of highlighting that progress isn't always linear.
Mm,
There are going to be setbacks.
Yeah.
There are going to be moments of doubt.
of course.
But as long as you keep taking those small steps and you're taking those imperfect actions,
Yeah.
you will eventually reach your destination.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is the final takeaway?
Well, the text leaves us with this thought. What's one thing that you've been putting off?
Hmm.
One step that you've been hesitant to take? And what if you chose to act? Embrace imperfection and start today. You might be surprised at what you can achieve.
I think that's a great place to leave it.
Hmm.
Thanks for joining me for another deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.